All right, we're back. So, doing something a little bit different today. We'll see if it's worth the trouble, but um, I've got my R5 at uh, downscaled 4K from 8K and 24 1.4 L lens. Um, we'll see. We'll see if it's worth the extra steps. I've been using my phone. It's fine. Um, but why not? I have it, right? So I might as well use it. Um, we've got a lot of shit to get through, so let's get right to it. And you're gonna have to forgive me if I um, kind of jump around a lot. It's been a few days since I've made one of these, so um, we'll start at the beginning or at the last place I left it at. So I saw this here, here, here. It's gonna end up right here. Um, 270,000 homebuyers who bought during their um, housing market in 2022 are already underwater, and that's not people that bought 2 years ago or last year. There's people that bought this year already, so um, it sucks. Interest rates are so high that housing prices have come down, and as always, this is for the boys. So I would encourage you boys to please absolutely always be mindful of um, who you do business with, how you do business, how you think about money, and to always be um, fiscally literate. The situation right now is um, the interest rates are high. Um, so when you borrow money, you're borrowing money, and you're going to pay it back at not just a bigger sum at the end of the term of the loan, but um, a bigger sum every month. So um, always make sure you know what you're getting yourselves into. Make sure you understand the arrangements that you're making, the impact that those arrangements are going to have on your lives, on your immediate future. So the things that are how it affects your month to month life, and also your long term future, and the things that it can um, keep you from accomplishing in the future or experiencing in the future. Um, you know, you want to think about your very long term future too, which is when you guys want to retire and want to not work for somebody else. Hopefully, my hope for you boys is that you never had to work for anybody else, that you have always been able to work for yourselves and do the things that you love and the things that you're passionate about. And it's really difficult because we are a family of immigrants, and um, we literally came here. I think my mom had $1,000 in her pocket, and that was from scrounging and saving and working our ass off for a while. I'll do one of the podcasts with my mom. She can tell that story herself. I think it's a very powerful and engaging story. It'll be for you Spanish speakers though, because she's not going to tell it in English. But it's a beautiful story. It's about perseverance and about um, deciding to do something even if it's really hard and just getting after it. So, big shout out to my mom and a lot of respect for her tenacity and her selflessness and her fucking guts, balls of steel. So, shout out, mom. I love you. Um, and another challenging thing is, we are constantly confronted by um, intellectual elitism. Not us, um, immigrants, but us people who. All right, another story. You know, I love my stories. I should probably just fucking make these things about stories and not just go through my whole fucking catalog. But anyways, um, so I'm like a four-time college dropout. I tried right after high school, and I went for about a year and a half, and then I got a full-time job. So I decided to focus on work instead. I also had like weird hours, so it was hard to keep a steady school schedule. I tried for a semester at least, and it just didn't work out. So I stopped for a long time, and then about 3, maybe 4 years later, I decided to go back, and I did really well. So the first time around, I didn't. I only cared about music and photography. So those are the two areas where I really shone. Um, I didn't much care for general education classes, and I wasn't thinking about it as like a vehicle for transferring or anything. So I just this, by the way, is very much an endorsement for alternative routes. So please listen to it um, with that ear. So, and it's also, by the way, why I will never begrudge either of the boys choosing to pursue their passions and their loves, even though there's very clearly a right way of doing things. I know that there's alternatives too, but they're much harder, and they very much narrow uh, your options. So just whatever you choose to do, do it mindfully, right? Do it knowing that there will be consequences. There will be costs associated with those pursuits of passion and love. So I decided about 3 or 4 years later to try again, and this time, I had matured a lot, and in high school, I didn't give a shit about school or academics. I prided myself in being more concerned and more capable with exploiting the system and proving my points than with actually uh, striving at any kind of academic accomplishments. I deliberately failed freshman English 4 times to prove a point. My senior year, they said to me that if I didn't pass, I would not graduate, and I just read the handbook, and I knew that that wasn't true, and I remember going to the counselor's office and saying, so if I'm reading this correctly, I can pass, my senior English, and I can pass this other class. Um, like it was called communication skills or some shit like that. And that counts as an English class on the books. So technically, as long as I pass that with a D or better, I can fail freshman English one more time, right? And she looked at me and she was so exacerbated. I would go in there all the time and challenge their belief systems. So she knew who I was, and she was exacerbated with my bullshit, and she begrudgingly acknowledged that I was correct, and she said, "But why do you want to do that? Like, why are you?" And I said, "Because this whole thing is pointless, right? So I'm gonna prove to you guys how pointless this all is, and this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fail." I told her, I had the balls to say this to her, which God bless that lady's patience. I don't know that I would have it now, but I said to her, "This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fail freshman English for the 4th time. I am going to get a D in communication skills, or whatever it was called. I think that was what it was called. And I'm going to get an A in senior English, just to prove to you people that I am capable, that I can do it, that I can excel at the difficult thing, and the simple thing has nothing to do or no bearing on my capacity, but you insist that I have to pass this thing. So it's just, you have to check off a box. So I'm going to prove to you that it is all futile. And that's exactly what I did. And that's what my transcript says. And I graduated, barely. But alas, I went on to, this school thing. And back then, this was before DACA or anything of this sort. Which, by the way, I'm very happy that that is a thing now. I had to lie. I had to lie to get into college. I had to, and I wouldn't have been able to get in if I hadn't applied while I was sitting in my high school auditorium filling out the paperwork. And they took it straight from high school into the system of the college. And I put down that I was a citizen when I wasn't. I was still very much an illegal immigrant. I'm a citizen now, so don't come after me. Don't be calling La Migra, I have my little paper, and I have an American passport, you motherfuckers. So anyway, so I lied to get into school, and I went to school, and I didn't give a shit about school. I didn't give a shit about math or English or history or any of that nonsense. To me, it was nonsense. I value it very much now. I've spent 21 years in academia, so I very much value it. But I digress. Anyways, so I dropped out, focused on music and photography, and I dropped out to start this career. And then I went back several years later, and I went back with the intent to move into a different school, right? I just had to prove that I could get the grades that I needed to apply to this other school, and that I could, I had to demonstrate, right? So this thing that the 16-year-old kid was trying to prove to himself, that he didn't need to prove anything to anybody. Now, 23-year-old me was very desperately trying to prove to people that I could fit in and get in and needed to. And there's very few things. There's only two things in life that I've ever wanted so desperately badly. One was to get into that school, and the second was to work in the music industry. I'll tell you the school story at the end of this, but anyways, I went back to school. I did really well. I proved my point. I got the grades that I needed to get A's in the courses that I needed to get to prove that I was capable of whatever academia needed of me. So that didn't work out quite as I hoped. I didn't get into that other school, even though I got into that other school. I'll get into that in a minute. But I was pretty demoralized after not getting in, as you can imagine. Like I just said, I didn't want anything more in life than to get into that school. And it didn't happen. But of course, things don't happen for a reason. Believe me, I've experienced so much shit, guys. So much fucking shit. And everything happens for a reason. So if I had gotten into that school, I wouldn't have been able to work on that construction project for 2 years. And I wouldn't have been able to spend 2 more years designing, or sorry, not designing, but I wouldn't have spent 2 years designing those systems and working hand in hand with those consultants, and then another 2 years doing the install and the tweaking and the fine tuning and all of the things that led to me getting it, the job that the career that I always dreamed of, that 16-year-old me always dreamed of. So I didn't get in, and I said, well, fuck academia then, fuck school. And so I dropped out for the second time. instead of sticking with it and going, okay, well, if I didn't get into my first choice, I'll keep fighting and I'll keep. I said, fuck this, fuck them, fuck the entire system, and I dropped out for a very long while. And then I went back years later for a third time to try to finish what I started, one, and also do what I needed to do to advance my career. I felt like I had gotten to a point where if I really wanted career advancement, then I would need to get the piece of paper that everybody asks for. So I decided to go back one more time. And this time, I got into the second most prestigious music school in the country, Berklee College of Music in Boston. And I was kicking ass. I was doing really fucking great. I was in the music business program. I was fucking flying. I was doing so well. And as life has a tendency to do, things fell apart. My marriage fell apart, and my life felt like it was falling apart. And at that point, I was working, running those two venues, and I also had started a production company on the side to book artists and to present artists and to promote shows. And so I was a founder, entrepreneur. I was also the chief creative officer of our company. And I was going to shows all the time. And I was doing school. And then, boom. One day, out of the blue, my life is upside down. So things started to kind of have to give way. My kids really needed me at that point. You boys really needed me at that point. And I had to make sacrifices. So I gave up the company and I gave up school because I needed to focus on making sure that you boys had everything you needed. Me, most importantly, right? As much of myself as I could give you. And I knew that these things that were kind of just indulgences, they felt like, were getting in the way of me doing that for you. So I dropped out of that program. And, it is what it is. So, here we are. I think I said 4, I'm at 3-time college dropout. And I'm okay with that. Because I had the most incredible 12 years in music. I did what I wanted to do. I started multiple companies. I have launched many different ventures. In my career, I've had 8 different positions in one company. I can't seem to stand still for very long, so I'm always moving, always climbing, always asking for more responsibility. And it hasn't really kept me from the things that not having an education is supposed to keep you from. But it was hard, right? Don't get me wrong. It has been difficult. It has been a challenge. It has also been a chip on my shoulder. All of my closest friends, not all, but a very, very large majority of my closest friends all but two of my closest friends are have terminal degrees, are MDs, PhDs, MFAs, um, JDs, and it's great. I love having that company, right? And I love knowing that I can hold my own, talking to my friends and hanging out with my friends, and they don't see me as anything less than themselves. But for a long time, I had a huge chip on my shoulder about it, um, because I don't even have a fucking bachelor's degree, right? And I barely graduated high school. Um, so all that to say, a formal education doesn't determine your intelligence, doesn't determine your worth, your ability, your capacity, or your value. And I very proudly wave the autodidact flag. And, that's kind of a part of this whole thing, right? Is I I like to talk because I have opinions, and I have opinions um, that I hope are well formed and well developed, and I can articulate them. And all of that is exactly what we do in academia, And I have had a lot of incredible friends and mentors who are academics who have helped me along the way. And I feel like in some way I've had a 21-year long education in academia, not just 4 years. And I very much feel like I have a fucking PhD in life. And nobody can take that away from me. So you boys do whatever the fuck you want, whatever makes you happy. Pursue the things that are worth pursuing. And in whatever form that is, right? Whether it's in a classroom, in a book, or on a canvas, or behind a camera. Because nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can take away from you the thing that you love, the things that you love, exploring them, engaging with them, nurturing them, and becoming well-rounded people. For a very long time, I mean, it's still very much the case, but for a very long time, every single day I prayed that you would become capable men, young men of virtue who lived contributive lives. And I know you will do that. I have no doubt that you will do those things. You're already virtuous people of great character. And you contribute so much every single day to my life. And I know you will do that for many other people in your lives. Brings us back to our point about financial literacy, right? That is one of the things that is important, of great importance. And I saw this tweet today, and it's also what got me into this tangent about academics, right? So this is a very privileged academic, educated point of view, and not the immigrant experience. Also, why I talked about being an immigrant. And it says, I hate how we push quote unquote financial literacy programs on poor people. They're not financially illiterate. They're broke. Be for real. There's only so much managing and saving money you can do when you don't have much. And I 100% agree with, you can't save your way out of poverty. It's impossible. But this is also very much such a privileged and bullshit take on financial literacy, because last year for Christmas I got my son a PlayStation 5. Well, I got them both a PlayStation 5, but it lives with one of them. And in looking for the PlayStation 5, big shout out to the homie Brian, by the way, who's the one that actually acquired it. Every day my man would send me drops like it's gonna drop, it's gonna drop, it's gonna drop, and he would try and he would try and I would try, and fucking finally, like a week before Christmas or whatever, he finally fucking landed the PlayStation. So big shout out to B for always looking out for my boys. Um, I love you so much, so thank you. Not for the PlayStation, but thank you for always being there for the boys. So, my mom came home one day, and she said, all those things you're looking for, los tienen en la Curazao. You can go right now down to La Curazao on fucking Harbor and get the boys a PlayStation 5. And I thought, oh, fuck, well, let's go. And she goes, yeah, the only thing they're asking, well, she goes, the only thing that they're doing is they're bundling it with a gaming chair and a monitor. So you have to buy the whole bundle. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Now you're talking about, fucking $1,300 instead of $500 or $600, however much the PlayStation was. Now you can't get it without a bundle. It's like fucking a car with all that bullshit extra insurance and nice wheels and all that shit that they add on to bump up the bottom line. It's like, what the fuck? And she goes, yeah. It's a bundle. You have to buy it with a bundle. But I think it's a good deal anyways, because you can't find it. You seem to not be able to find it. You've been trying so hard for so long. And I said, all right, fine. Yeah, you twisted my arm, right? So she goes back to the fucking store. And she calls me from the store and she goes, so actually they won't sell me the PlayStation if I don't, either I had given her my credit card to pay for it, or she was going to pay for it with hers and I was just going to pay her back, whatever. I don't remember the details, but point is, we were not going to open a new credit card to buy this. She said, oh, they're not letting me buy it. I have to sign up for their credit card in order to buy it. Do you want me to do that? I said, absolutely fucking not. I said, how much is the interest rate? And she goes, I don't know, it's fucking 25%. And I was like, yeah, what the fuck, no. And first of all, I think that's illegal. But second of all, that's how this company, who is for the people, is operating. This company, who is very much entrenched in our neighborhoods and is a staple in our community, is using these predatory practices to hook people into added debt and new debt with an already marked up product. And unless you are financially literate, you don't know just how predatory and how bad this is, and how now all of a sudden a $500 or $600 PlayStation is going to end up potentially costing you like $3,000 if all you can do is make the minimum payment. So, fuck this hot take on financial literacy. Because, and this is the problem with tweets, and this is the problem with thinking everything you say has value, and the problem with hot takes is that it leaves all of the nuance out of the conversation. It leaves all of the nuance out of the debate. And there's no room to say, well, I disagree with this, and here are the reasons why. It's either I just agree with you or I disagree with you, and I'm either an idiot or I'm either an asshole. Those are the only two options in this scenario. I'm either an idiot because I agree with you, or I'm an asshole because I disagree with you. And the truth of the fact, or truth of the matter is that I can disagree with you I think my camera, I hit the time limit. So it's like, hey, shut the fuck up. So I can disagree with you on the simplicity of your premise. And I agree with you on a great point within your point, right? And that is that you cannot millionaire yourself out of poverty by saving 10% of your $18 an hour job. Impossible. It's impossible. I agree. But I disagree that we shouldn't be pushing for financial literacy programs for poor people. That's just so fucking stupid. Anyways, fucking hot take on one fucking thing, right? And speaking of, fiscal literacy, if you were fiscally literate, you would fucking know that this whole SBF thing was a Ponzi scheme. I'm genuinely surprised that Mr. Wonderful got suckered by this guy, but he was also paid $15 million to shill. So, even if he lost $9 million in investing, he still came up $6 million for his shilling. So maybe I'm not so surprised. And he's arrested. He's in supposedly a notoriously bad jail. So I don't know that there's any good jails, but good. Fuck him. He destroyed a lot of people's lives, and there's this new CEO at FTX, and this guy is very clearly an inside Wall Street kind of guy, and he is going to just absolutely fuck the living shit out of not just FTX, but decentralized banking as a whole. This guy's in there to make sure that regulation is the unlubricated dildo of consequences that is about to hit the crypto market. So I hope you enjoyed it while it lasted. And while we're on somewhat economic times here, I've got some pretty good FTX memes, so I'll just roll these out. The internet remains undefeated, of course, and there was this congressman who was the first Gen Z congressman, continuing our conversation about fiscal literacy, right? So there's the first Gen Z congressman elected to represent his people, went off to D.C., and he was denied his apartment application because he has bad credit. So, if you hear him talking about it, he's the victim here. Not the choices he made. Not responsible for the choices he made. For, he's complaining about how he had to rack up debt to run for Congress, yada, yada, yada. Hey, asshole, that's what happens. You rack up debt, your credit score gets bad, you get denied your fucking apartment. It's very simple arithmetic. And you don't get to cry about it. You don't get to cry about having made a choice, a pursuit of something, and having that thing be difficult and costly, and then having to deal with the consequences of it. It's just, how does this fucking make any sense? This self-victimization and this self-pity, the woe is me of this fucking internet generation who thinks everything they say is of value. And I know the irony in me being on the internet telling you this, but how the fuck does it make sense to these kids that they think they can say whatever the fuck they want and that it holds value, and they can do whatever the fuck they want, and they should face no repercussions for it, they should face no consequences for it, and when they do, They are the victims. They self-victimize. I don't understand. I do not understand how you continue to do this to yourselves and how you think you can represent a district of constituents by self-victimizing. I don't understand. Grow the fuck up. Deal with the consequences. Sleep in your fucking office if you have to. Plenty of other Congress people do. So, you're about to get a very nice paycheck. 6 figures. $238,000 I think is. Don't quote me on that number, but it's a very healthy number. Save some money. Pay off your credit card debt. Get a fucking apartment. Or pay for an apartment in cash. You can do that once you get your first check. Sleep in the office until then. You have a gym in Capitol Hill. You'll be fine. Don't fucking cry about it. And of course there's a great tweet about it, so, or a great meme about it from The Onion. So, the last kind of fiscal thing I will talk about is our dear friend Elon Musk has sold $40 billion of Tesla stock in a year. And well, something's happening outside, so I hope it doesn't make the cut. Anyways, our friend Elon has sold $40 billion worth of Tesla stock to finance his petulant whim. And I didn't know this. I learned this today. Tesla raised $32 billion in private equity funding and then has made $9 billion worth of profits in its entire history. So Tesla has made, or has had in its coffers, $41 billion in its entire existence. And this man-child has spent $40 billion to finance his temper tantrum. And it makes me very, very happy that he has chosen to do this. Because fuck him. You know, he wants to be a piece of shit. I'm not on Twitter. I have an account, but I don't fucking use it. And I choose to not engage in that platform. I never have, but I'm even less inclined to now. I think he's a piece of shit. You know how much I love Dave Chappelle, and I was disappointed in him for not only bringing him up on stage, but also defending him when he got booed out of the fucking building. Yeah, I thought it was maybe Dave protecting his friend, or, you know, Dave is angling for something down the road. Who knows? But I was pretty disappointed in that. But again, it's Dave's show. And I'm going to Dave's show tomorrow night, in fact. Maybe tonight by the time I post this, or maybe yesterday by the time I post it. Who knows? But I'm going to Dave's show. It's not going to keep you from going to Dave's show. I can disagree with some of the shit Dave does and says and still support him. And if I felt like, oh, you know what, bringing Elon on stage is the final straw, or picking on trans people, or making this joke or that joke, or talking about, you know, sexual assault or whatever my final straw is up to me. And I can disagree with some of the words and some of the actions and still choose to support him. Still choose to buy a ticket. At the same time, I can choose to stop. And that's my fucking right. That's my fucking privilege. And that's my fucking responsibility. You don't get to tell me who the fuck I can and can't support. We've been over this over and over again. So, which, you know, this is a great tweet. It says, you know, the right, but also the left. Someone who doesn't agree with the point of view with their point of view. And, are they triggered? Yeah, both fucking sides do this. Both fucking sides. It's exhausting. Just fucking let people do whatever the fuck they want. As long as it's not hurting anyone, Like, and what I mean by that, like, legitimate, direct harm. Not, you hurt my feelings. Not, these things make me sad, or these things are in some hypothetical way going to hurt people. That doesn't pass the smell test. Back to Elon, who is the free speech absolutist. He's now banning journalists from Twitter because of their reporting on Twitter. And he was confronted by journalists on Twitter Spaces, so he shut down Twitter Spaces. Again, this is some people's heroes, right? This is some people's messiah. And he's the self-proclaimed free speech absolutist. He's just a fucking man-child. He's a coward. He has thin skin and just fuckloads of money. And fuckloads of money help mask the shortcomings, right? And it doesn't take away from the fact that they're still there. You can't completely mask them. It's like trying to perfume your way out of smelling like shit. You're still going to smell like shit. It's just now there's two offending odors. So he's a fucking petulant man-child. And now we have to endure him even more. Now it's not just his employees and his stakeholders. Now it's all of us because he chose to buy the public town square. And now he's getting into fights with journalists who he had picked to write positive stories for him. So, just in every way possible, fuck Elon Musk. And I'll leave you with this. Just so you don't say that I'm not fair. I'm always going to pick on Nancy Pelosi for being an inside trader. And I hope that whatever fortune comes the FTX guy, comes her way too. Very unlikely, but that is my hope for her future. And for all politicians who benefit from the public servants. Sorry, I didn't say that right. They're supposed to be public servants, and they're benefiting from the work of public servants for personal gain. Fuck it, but let us all in on the fucking cookie jar. Why are you holding out? I think that's it. That's it for today's rant. There was a lot of football to talk about, but I will save it for another time. If you haven't already, there's 3 things that I think you should watch. 2 of them are Neil Brennan's The Blocks podcast. The first one is with David Letterman, who is one of my fucking heroes. So watch Dave on Blocks. And watch Bert Kreischer on Blocks. Bert is absolutely hilarious in his own very birdie way. But back to Dave. Dave has a special on Netflix. It's a special presentation of my next guest with Zelensky, President Zelensky. And I've only gotten through half of it, but it's pretty incredible. So please go on Netflix and catch my next guest with President Zelensky, and go on YouTube and catch, or Spotify or whatever. I like to watch podcasts on video, so go catch Neil Brennan's new podcast on YouTube. And I'll leave you with this little nugget. They're all, both sides are trying to fuck us. So I hope we all get with the program someday. And that's it.